Hi, welcome back to CS170 fall section. I'm just gonna do a couple quick things here in terms of logistics and introduction into Excel spreadsheets. Um, so as per some feedback on the midterm reviews, I'm gonna break this up into like smaller lectures. So I'm just going to cover some logistics and introductions for this one. So there's a couple of things here. One, as you can see, this is another clean break. So now you're going to have your second exam, which will be focused on JavaScript. And then your final section will basically be covering the Excel spreadsheets. I mean, there's some stuff about security and privacy and all that kind of stuff, but the big topic for this third section, which is down here in this green color, is Excel. And whether it's the assignments or like, some of the other teaching stuff around this, this is probably the area that I'm dealing with the most because this is the part that I put together. So the JavaScript stuff here, we're concluding. And, I think this is one of those things where it really, works well for you. You can make sure you have examples for each of the different topics, right? And, I think maybe some people kind of overlooked the fact that there's like modules and should be referring to them. So if you go over to here and you can see like, well, here's my section, right? So allow synchronous, and then I have all these links for the different resources here, whether it's the Piazza stuff, the class announcements, student schedule, blah, blah. Here's modules here, right? You could also go to modules here too, right? But try to put all the links onto one page so you can get to it from one place here. And of course, there's quizzes, exams, and whatnot. So let's go to modules really quick. So you can see on the modules, we have the general course information, but you have week by week on the resources, right? So, every single week, let's go to our resource here, and you'll see I have an example one spreadsheet. This is what your TAs are going to be using for their recitations when they go into Excel. Okay. And so here you can see, well, obviously we have the textbook, but you see all these different lines here, right? And, these are basically different things. And, it's almost like a checklist. You just look at this stuff and say, okay, do I have an example of how to do this? Do I know what it is? And stuff like that, right? And of course, you have your video resources here. You can just click through on these. Here's some vocabulary, right? And you have this for every week. Let me go back. Let me go back to, let's say, on the JavaScript side. Let me see here. Okay. So you can see it's fairly detailed here, right? And so like all of these different points here, if you're not clear about what that is and you don't have an example of how that's done, then let us know and we'll try to work up something for you or go through that with you. Okay. And of course, a lot of these particular topics, if you just do a search on that within W3 schools, I mean, you'll also see that too. Okay. So, but all these different things in the resources, I think they're pretty useful to help you to organize your notes and your thoughts and your examples for the exam. So that's my suggestion, right? I think some people didn't realize that you can go to resources and it has it broken out every week on what you should be trying to make sure you understand or digest. Okay, so little suggestion there. The other thing is on the assignments. So here, let's see here, overdue, upcoming. Yeah, so we don't have the arrays posted, but I talked to the professors. So I'm not the one that comes up with the JavaScript assignment. Um, that assignment is going to be ready at 6 a.m. Monday morning. Okay. So I guess there were some assignments that got opened up a little bit earlier, but in this case, the assignment will open up at Monday, 6 a.m. And I'm trying to look here. If I look at all of these slots here, they all say 6 a.m. here, right? So 6 a.m., 6 a.m., um, 6 a.m., and 6 a.m. So these are the dates here that they open up like so, okay? Um, so let me see here. Okay, all right. So let's go into the basics of spreadsheets. So like I said, this first part will just be a quick intro about the topics for that. And I'm going to cut the video, then I'll restart and post a new video to actually get into the Excel sheet. So what do we have here? Um, you have your the view of like math symbols versus spreadsheet symbols. And, I think all that is just like, well, okay, let's say I want to do like a power, right? Like, 5 squared or 5 cubed or whatever. Um, how would I represent that on the Excel spreadsheet, right? We kind of know how we do that on a piece of paper. So we'll have to go through that on how we do it on a spreadsheet, right? So for example, here, you see this, right? Little caret going up for your power. And then we'll go through the concept of like workbooks and worksheets. Um, and then these are different things about cell references, which I'll get into in the next lecture. Uh, naming groups of cells, okay? Yeah, I know some of this, I list these details, you don't really know what that means until we go into like more of the context, like overall about what is actually a spreadsheet and whatnot. So we'll get into that. But, there's just a list of the different topics. Learning objectives, I guess you can call them, right? You have to, by the time you're done with it, you should understand what these things are, okay? And of course they have functions and spreadsheets and whatnot. Again, I'll talk about that. There's some advanced stuff. There's some stuff for statistics. Okay. You can do charts in Excel. You can do all kinds of formatting on it. You can do scenario analysis with it. So I think, whether it comes in terms of doing presentations on large amounts of data or summarizing large amounts of data, doing some scenarios, that's what people will be using Excel for. Right, so that's why you have things like data sets with tables and pivot tables, pivot charts. This is meant to really slice and dice large amounts of data and visualize it or present it for the target audience. Okay, and here we have a bullet point for a list of like why we use Excel. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you, if you're doing like financial statements and whatnot, you'll see a lot of numbers. And if you want to, analyze them and whatnot, you're going to be looking at financial information in Excel. Okay. A lot of people will use Excel to track inventory, right? There are some issues with that sometimes. It's easy to screw it up, but I think for a lot of people, this is like the first step of tracking inventory. Certainly, it's probably better than tracking it on a piece of paper, right? And because you store a lot of information in Excel, or you could store a lot of information in Excel, You can layer on, all the analysis you might do manually, you can also kind of automate it a bit. And you can do some operational statistics, look for ways to, find operational efficiencies, things that are jumping out saying, oh, this is not good. People will do that kind of stuff usually in Excel, okay? And you can do schedules, right? You can, people have managed whole projects within Excel, right? Kind of doing it sort of like a project plan. It's not as good as using a formal project plan application, but again, it's something that's usable. So yeah, instead of using Microsoft Project, let's say, or some other standalone project planning tool, they might use Excel to do project plans, right? So like we were talking about with the charts and stuff like that, you can do graphical displays of information, consolidate information or summarize information the way I mentioned it. And then what if scenarios, you can, plug various things. So essentially you can use Excel to build up models. And then based on those models, you can plug in different types of scenarios to kind of say, oh, what happens if my revenue goes up 20%, right? What are the other things that will be impacted by doing that? What happens if my revenue drops by 50%? What happens if my costs go up by $2? Let's say I have to, raise everybody's wages for minimum wage or whatever. So what happens if I have to shift everybody's labor cost by $2? Do I have to change something to improve my profit margin? Do I have to change something to cover my fixed costs? Whatever that might be. So, so what if scenarios, okay? And then you have computing, right? Yeah, so I think what we're saying here is like with the spreadsheets, they don't have to contain a single number to be useful. Yeah, I mean, because there's the visualization aspects of things. A lot of people, they're either a numbers person or they're more of a visual person, right? And I think with the spreadsheet, because of the way it provides the tooling to manipulate the data and present it in a visual way, there's a lot of things you can do in that regard. And people have done all kinds of stuff with spreadsheets that don't necessarily need numbers, okay? But having said that, the most common application is to process numbers, right? Process numerical data. You see all kinds of mathematical formulas, statistics functions, and whatever that's dealing with those numbers. And then, yeah, just talking about you can use text information in here too. Okay, so it's data, right? Essentially data. You can put all kinds of data into Excel. And there's things that you would have to do like some data quality type of stuff and whatnot. And, actually, this is the end of the first part to give the introduction. Then you can have like we can actually do some stuff. But before I do that, this last part where I talked about the data, maybe I can bring that up really quickly. Let me see here. So here, I've actually been working on different things to clean up some data sets that someone sent over to me. So yeah, you see stuff like this, right? And of course, don't worry about the fact that I'm doing all these different things here. This is something that we'll be covering in future lectures, right? But, before I worked on some of this stuff, and it's still a work in progress. There's some stuff I gotta still clean up with this, right? But like all of these choices, there was like a whole bunch more choices, right? Because people were putting some random stuff in here. So you had to go in there and kind of like interpret the data a little bit and say, okay, is this a real distinct category, or can I lump it in together with another category, right? So there's different things you can do with this data, right? Here you can apply some filters. I can do like select all, or I can just select, people with bachelor's degree or people pursuing another degree here. Let's see what that's pursuing. Pursuing a bachelor, doctorate, master's, PhD, whatever, right? And then these, right? So this is part of like after I did some cleanup. Before that, there was like a whole mess of this. It was like freaking like 20, 30 different categories because people were putting in like all kinds of stuff and that didn't fit, that they didn't think fit into these buckets, but they actually do, right? And so I just need to like, refine the data to clean up the data. It's called like data quality type of stuff, right? And of course you can do like, some different things like sorting and whatnot. So then you can kind of see the data side by side, right? Just really quickly, let me just sort this a second. Right, so you can see stuff like that and whatnot. So there's different things like this that, and you can see this is none of this is numbers, right? Really, you can see all this different text and whatnot, right? So it's one of those type of things where if you go and work with this, there's so many different uses for Excel, whether it's actually just number crunching or whether it's doing like what I'm looking at here in terms of like data quality. So you can see here, like people kind of put in all kinds of different things here. And I'm gonna have to go through this and see if I can really distill this into a more summarized or bucketed view, right? So stuff like this is fine, right? But there's some others that I still need to clean up a little bit. Okay, anyway, I don't want to take too long with this. All right, I'm going to sign off on this lecture. We're going to kick off into like some real spreadsheet work in the next lecture. Thank you.